All right. Well, it is 6:01, and I'm the type of dog that starts very close to on time, so we are going to begin, provided I am recording, which I seem to be. Hopefully we'll be recording this correctly. Let's check one more thing. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, seems to be working. So, welcome everybody. We are doing how to acquire a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio with just $3,000. How many people were sold pretty hard by my email today? Pretty good, right? It is a good class, so we're definitely going to do it. So, it is based on this book, and actually, note to reward people that arrive on time. It's based on this book. How many people came to the Christmas party and got a copy of the book? Okay. How many people did not come to the Christmas party and do not have a copy of this book? Okay, cool. So, I only brought one with me. You're a client. I will get you one. Just let me know, and I will get you a separate copy. So this is the one that the class tonight is based on. How many people were there that did not have a copy? We'll do a drawing. You have one, right? Yep. We're gonna have you pick a random number. Okay? So how many people? One. You're going to get one, too. You're a client. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that it? 6 people? Is that right? 6 people? All right, so random number between 1 and 12. You got one? Write it down so that we know. Write it down in your book or something like that. And then we're going to start in the back, and you're going to guess the number. If you get the number exactly, you'll get it. Otherwise, we'll do closest, but not exceeding. What number do you pick? 9. Is that right? Close. Oh. Who else was in the running? No one else? What?
7. 8.
That was it? Wow, awesome. Eddie wins it. Sorry, guys. You're very, very welcome. All right, so who are you, and how much do you believe you'll need to acquire a multi-million-dollar real estate rental portfolio in our current real estate market? The title slide says, how to acquire a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio with just $3,000. So I will ask the question again. Who are you, and how much do you believe you'll need to acquire a multi-million-dollar real estate rental portfolio in our current real estate market, and what else is holding you back from doing it? So Ty, what do you think?
Ty, believe
3,000?
I did it with more than that, or I'm doing it with more than that.
Right. It's kind of like you think that you need more than that, right?
Right.
So what do you think you need? Just really rough it.
10 grand.
10 grand.
Yeah.
Okay, so 10 grand. And is there anything holding you back from doing it?
Nope.
Okay, good. Welcome. Hey.
Elijah. I'll give you down to 3.
Okay.
I read through the book, and it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
What's holding me back? Probably the debt-to-income ratio.
Okay.
As we move down the road is what we're kind of looking at.
Okay, cool. We'll take a look at that tonight. I have slides on that, so awesome. Thanks. Hello.
I'm Liz. I'm a skeptic.
Okay.
I read the book.
You read the book?
Yes.
Okay, and you're still skeptical.
I'm a little skeptical.
All right, cool. We're going to slide on that, too.
Um,
I anticipate this stuff. I realize it's hard to believe. I mean, I put up a slide like that. It's like, oh, my gosh. Come on, James. Really? You're pulling my leg.
So I guess what's really holding me back
Uh-huh.
is understanding how to actually execute that strategy.
Okay.
So I think it's just awareness.
Okay. So we'll cover some of that tonight. If you have any questions, let us know as we go. Awesome. Cool.
I'm Joe. I still believe it takes more than $3K to
Fair enough.
multi-million. And what's holding me back? After tonight's amazing class, I'd say nothing.
Okay, awesome. We will address all your concerns tonight during class. So, Eddie, the winner of the book.
Winner of the book, yeah. Eddie, I'm going to say 3,000 because that's what what's holding me back? Nothing after tonight.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Welcome. Hello. I'm doing amazing. How are you? Who are you and how much do you believe?
I'm going to go with 3,000.
Okay, 3,000. First of all, who are you?
James.
James. Okay, cool. I'm James too. So you believe 3,000. What else is holding you back from doing it?
Nothing. Just
Nothing.
Understanding the process.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Welcome. Thank you. Hello.
Hey, I'm Paul. I think it may take a little more unless you do it step by step and get it all done. I think you'd end up probably needing a little more.
Okay. Like a little more like 50 grand?
No, 10 grand. I'd say 10 grand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Just getting the first deal done, I guess. Get the ball rolling, get it started.
All right, cool. Awesome. Thanks. Welcome. Who are you?
I'm Brittany.
Okay.
And then 3,000 seems really low to me, but
Mhm.
I don't really have a good way to gauge it. So
Okay.
I have a
Okay, cool. Thanks. Welcome. Hello.
That's Caleb. And I think it would take more than 3,000 as well.
Okay, cool.
But not much.
Not much, you mean?
Maybe 50.
50K. Okay. It's a lot easier to do a 50K, that's for sure. Awesome. Any other thing hold you back?
Yeah, probably cash.
The cash to do it? Okay, you can do it with 3K. Do you have 3K? Okay. Then you can do it. It could work. Hello.
I'm Patrick, and I believe that you can do it with $3 grand. I don't think that I can because I'm not going to Nomad anymore. But
So what's holding you back is your lack of desire to move into houses. That's what I hear you say.
lack of convincing the family to keep moving every year at this point is probably
Okay?
the struggle.
So we just threw the wife under the bus. That's what I just heard you say.
I'm going to blame her.
Okay.
No. But otherwise, I think almost anyone can do it.
Okay. Awesome.
And I think honestly that you could still do it with less in this market. Even if you're not going to Nomad, I think there's ways to do it with less than people assume.
I think that's true too. Okay, cool. Cameron.
Hi, I'm Cameron. Well, I would say I think you probably do it with 3,000, but the more money you have, the faster it'll go probably.
That is also true.
What's holding me back is I'm a student, so I don't know where I'll be. I don't really have a job right now, per se, but once I get out of school, definitely want to get the ball rolling with it.
Yeah, the job one's tricky. Can we get loans for people in school?
Parent cosigner.
With a parent cosigner. So that's another wrinkle in there.
Yeah, I also don't know where I'm going to be, so
That's also tricky.
yeah, but yeah, I think we can do it for free cheap.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks. Welcome.
I'm Zach. I think you do it $3 grand. I think at 15 would be a lot easier.
That's true.
What's holding back is education and knowing how to put the deal together.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. Welcome. Hello. Like the Kiss song. You never listened to the Kiss song? Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true.
I think 10 grand would be easier. I like that number.
I agree.
But I think it's possible. We've been nomads before.
Nice. So you have some belief already.
Well, yeah, nomads in the sense that we've moved a ton. So I don't know if we really want to do that number.
Okay. What if I told you it's actually really good for you financially? Would you be willing to do it then? Okay. We'll talk about that tonight too. Cool. Thanks. Welcome. Hello.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and to acquire a multi-million-dollar profile, you probably need multi-millions of dollars. I'm kidding. I haven't read the new stuff.
Okay.
But I'm not sure I believe 3,000.
Okay.
I'd love to see you change your mind.
Okay, cool. I will attempt to do that tonight. Awesome. Hello.
Hi, I'm Denise, and I suppose it's possible, but not for me. I've already bought property that's worth
You spent way more than that already. So it's hard to believe when you're already put more than that in. So, yeah. Yes, I definitely have heard that excuse before. Many times. Many times. So, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm here. I think it depends on a person's like non-financial assets,
Okay.
like credit score and access to like OPM, not just your own 3,000.
Okay.
cash on hand.
Okay.
What else is holding me back?
Yeah.
Student loans,
Yep.
like the inherent guilt of taking advantage of the free market, gentrification, displacement, those things.
I don't even know what they are.
Not wanting to contribute to that.
I don't know what those are. So I guess I live in a blissful world of. Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. Hello.
Hello, I'm Walter. I've been here before. It's been a while.
Yes.
I'm ready to believe.
Okay. You're ready to believe now?
What's holding back? Nothing's holding back now. I'm ready.
Okay. Cool.
I'm in a position to go all out.
Very cool. Well, welcome. And you guys snuck in.
Yeah.
What's up, man? How are you?
Good.
Who are you?
I'm Jake. I think it really depends on your situation. From what I know, I mean, you could get in it with no money, really.
You can?
You could start it. It might be a little longer process, but you could do it.
I think the way to do it with no money, it would be the exact same amount of time.
Probably as long as you have. It depends. Like, I mean, if you're a veteran,
That's what I mean.
like you, yeah.
I mean,
So
you
zero
basically
down,
replace the
start with
first
nothing.
down payment with a 0% down loan program. You do it same money, same amount of time.
I guess technically you need like $500 for earnest money, so we'll call it 500.
Probably don't even need to do that.
Okay.
We can make it work.
Yeah.
So.
Nothing
Okay, cool. Thanks.
A little bit of time.
Welcome. Hello.
Hi. I don't know what I walked into. So.
Okay, cool. Oh, you're here as a guest?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, who are you?
I'm Kim. I'm Jake's wife.
Oh, okay, cool.
Um,
Oh, I see how this is working now. It's like, let's bring my spouse to the class, have someone else tell her about the plan I'm going to spring on her later tonight.
oh no, I'm not. He has plans all the time.
Okay. Is that what happened to you?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, that's crazy. Okay.
We're all here.
Oh, it's like both of them? It's like the row of them. There's like 3 in a row right here. What is that, like Connect 4 almost? That's really cool.
We win. That's why.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like, oh, by the way, go to this real estate class. I think you'll find it very interesting. Just look out for the spreadsheet when you get home.
Right.
I made this a couple days ago. I want to show it to you now that you see what we're doing there. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, do you think anything is holding you back?
I think probably just fear of the unknown. Probably.
I think fear's legit. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, welcome. Did I miss anybody? Courtney, did I get you?
No, but
Courtney, who are you? How much do you believe you'll need to acquire multi-million-dollar real estate?
me and I need your brain and Walter's money.
Okay. Fair enough. Anything else holding you back from doing it?
No.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Welcome. So upcoming classes. Tonight is the How to Acquire Multi-Million-Dollar Real Estate Portfolio. I'm James Orr, by the way, in case you don't know. Contract to Close, that is going to be next Tuesday. That's the class on what happens once you go under contract to buy a property all the way through to closing. So what happens when you're under contract to buy. That will be the webinar on Tuesday night. The next Wednesday class, Brian is teaching. In fact, I have off for like a month. Brian's teaching classes for the month, which is really good for me. He is in Vegas tonight. That's why he's not here. Millionaire Real Estate Investor, that's the blue book. Anyone read the blue book? Who's read the blue book, the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book by Gary Keller? No one's read that? Okay, it's worth reading. You guys should definitely read it. And if you don't read it, Brian's going to teach it to you next week. So you don't have to necessarily read it, I guess, if you don't want to. Seller's Property Disclosure Case Studies, that is going to be next Tuesday. When you go under contract, the seller, usually, not always, discloses a bunch of information about the property, and I'm going to show you everything about seller's property disclosure and show you examples of what you might expect. Because for most people, they buy a house, they only see one. They only see the one they're buying a house on, and you want to know what's normal, what you can expect to see on that, and how to use that to your advantage. And so I'll show you a whole bunch of examples of that on Tuesday night. And then Asset Protection Part 1 of 2 is going to be Wednesday, April 5th. Part 2 of 2 is going to be April 5 plus 7, 12. So it'll be on the 12th, Asset Protection Part 2. So Part 1 is the class you guys, if you've attended Asset Protection before here, that's the same class. Part 2 now is going to be the forms. So I managed to persuade Brian to teach from the forms that you would use in order to do asset protection. So now the first class is all the theory and how to do it. And then class 2 is the in practice, the actual forms you have for that class. And so that will be on the 12th, but the class that you're probably used to seeing is on the 5th. You should come to the 5th one before the 12th, because if you don't understand this stuff, it's going to be really confusing for the 12th. And Brian has already told me, it's one of the reasons why this class is so long, because he doesn't want to split it up into 2 classes. He's already told me he's not reteaching this class on the 12th. So if you don't know, he's going to tell you, go watch the video, become James's client, or whatever you need to do in order to watch it, because he's not reteaching it that night. It's just going to be forms. And then finally, on Tuesday, April 11th, negotiating win-win inspections for maximum benefit. Once you are under contract to buy a property, you go through the inspection process, and we're going to talk about the negotiation process once you're under contract, and what that looks like, and how it all works. And then we'll talk about strategy for negotiating it to be win-win, but for you to get what you want out of the inspection. Any questions on upcoming classes? All right, cool. There are 158 slides tonight, just so you know. All right, so I'm going to have to go pretty fast. And you're going to notice I start off pretty slow, and then I go a little bit faster toward the end, so we'll kind of go there. All right, that's the slide for tonight. Background. So how did this class come about? Did anyone come to the class where I talked about how to develop your down payment for Nomad? Anyone actually attend that class? You came to that class, Paul?
Maybe last year.
So you'll remember, because I handed out a color printout that had like a whole bunch of little houses on it in different colors. And so anyone remember getting that color handout? You came to that class? Okay, cool. So during that class, when I was preparing for that class, what I discovered was I was starting to ask myself, okay, how can we do the entire Nomad model, buying a house, moving in, living there for a year, and then converting it to a rental? How could we do that and minimize or come up with the down payment that we need in order to do it? And so I started thinking about, well, if you moved into the first one, and you could get a nothing down loan or 1% down loan and do that. And then when you were moving out, when you were actually going to convert it to a rental, let's say you actually found a lease option tenant buyer, someone who wanted to buy the property from you but needed to rent it for a year or two in order to be able to do that. And when you moved out, you got an option fee from them that you then use that option fee in order to get the next loan. And maybe I should have asked this ahead of time, but can we, Patrick is a lender, Patrick, can we use the option fee on a property we're moving out of as a down payment on the house we're moving into next? Okay, so it's a good thing that works. That's the whole basis of the plan. So I'm glad I double checked. So basically you use the option fee from the house you're moving out of as the down payment for the house that you're moving into. So if you need 5% down to do the next property, which you could do it with 5% down, the first two after the first one for loans 2 and 3, you can do it with 3% down, right? So basically you could get just a 3% down payment. For tonight's class, we're going to use 5% for all those. But if you get a 5% option fee, you can use that as a down payment to do the next property. And so you don't even need the down payment on the second property because you're getting it from the first house you moved out of. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, that's a big part of the class. So when I was going through this thing and I was thinking about how can I minimize how much you need and how you can go ahead and do the entire model without having to come up with a lot of extra down payment, I came up with this whole process. The process of using a lease option tenant buyer to give you the down payment for the next one, and then you do that until they start popping out, you get money in hand, and you can start buying not just 5% down properties where you live in them, but you can also buy 20% down properties where you can keep them as straight rentals. And so that's what you're doing in this model. All right, so I talked about that. Ended up using the math by hand. So the first time I went and I kind of did this out, I didn't have software. I didn't write software to do the analysis. I actually did it by hand, and I said, okay, we're going to make about $40,000 or $50,000 every time we sell one of these after 4 years. So I'll do that, and every time we do a rental property, I'm going to need this % down. And so I did it all out by hand mathematically, and that was what the presentation for this class, the how to get your down payment was. But since then, I've written code. Who is the book? Eddie, hold up your book. So I wrote code to actually do the calculations for that book, and I did a presentation on it, and that's what we're going to go over tonight. Thank you, Eddie. So I'll show you the infographic, and it actually had an error on it. I made an error when I was doing it by hand. And it was originally based on a property in Windsor in 2016. So there was a new construction neighborhood in Windsor 2016, and the analysis we did was based on those properties. And it was based on buying them early, renting them out, and getting those numbers to be able to buy them. Now we realized that there are properties over there are no longer available. But there are similar enough properties that you can buy in Wellington, in Berthoud, in other parts of Windsor. So you can continue to do this model, but the property we originally based it on is no longer available. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so here are the assumptions I used. When you go buy the first property, when you go and you move into the first one, all you need is 1% down. So Patrick, can you get a loan with 1% down in our marketplace right now? Yeah. Okay. So there are restrictions on it. It's not like for everybody. There's income restrictions, right?
Yeah, there is an income component to it, but I haven't found, you look it up on Freddie Mac's website, just like you would with the USDA, but none of the properties in Northern Colorado have it.
Have the restriction?
I have yet.
I thought there was, if you made too much money, you could not do the 1% down one.
I had to go to like Steamboat to Routt County or like Avon, some of the higher zip codes.
Okay.
To find where the income cap applied.
Okay, so you really can do it. It's really easy to do if you have a decent credit score? Okay, so you can go get, on your first property you buy, you can do it with 1% down. For the second and third one, you can do those with 3% down, although we're not doing those for the model. Tonight we're going to talk about using 5% down for the second one, the third one, and on until you get to 10, right? And then after 10, if you own 10 properties like that, then you need to convert to portfolio loans in order to do those, beyond 10, okay? So when I did the calculations originally, I was saying 1% down for the first ones, and then any subsequent properties were 5% down. I was rounding up the down payment negative cash flow. So on a $2,800 or $286,000 property, you needed a down payment of $2,860. I rounded that up to $3,000 when I did it by hand. So I wasn't about to go carry the numbers out to that level. When I did the math tonight, it's exact. Okay, it's down to the dollar. And any negative cash flow, I actually had that rounded as well. I could do 5% down up to 10 loans for owner-occupant, which we talked about. Now, when we're talking about other loans, Can you go buy investment property with 5% down? Anyone? No. What's the minimum? Most of the time it's 20, although 20 is actually an overlay, isn't it? The real rule is 15. And it's hard to find lenders that can do the 15. Is that correct? Right. So basically, if you find a lender who's willing to do it, you can do that, but most of the PMI companies are not doing it. So most of the time, you have to do 20% down for those till you get to 4, and then after that, it's usually 25% down, correct? Unless you're going to do portfolio loans, okay? So the neighborhood we modeled, so 20 if you're married and alternate between spouses. So 5% down, up to 10 loans for owner-occupant. But if you're married, we're my pairs, the bamboozled couples, okay? So what you could do is you could alternate. So you could go ahead, Connor, and you could actually go and do one loan, then you could do one loan, then you could do one loan, then you could do one loan, and you could actually end up with 10 each, correct?
Yeah, you have to keep the titles separate.
Agreed. So that's a really good question. I've never asked this before. So I recently realized that you can actually have 2 people sign for the loan and only have one on title. And vice versa. You could have one person on 2 people on the property and only one person on the loan. So if they were both on title, that would count as one of their spots?
Yeah, because that counts, even though it's not in her name, the loan, or his name, it counts as an owned property.
Okay.
So with the 1% down, you can't own any other property, which is why you do it first. So that would kill the, she couldn't do 1% on her second home.
Okay.
And then you get into this, like, does that debt count against her? Because we run into this with some other clients that have multiple properties, and they try to strip each other off the title.
Yep.
So there's ways to do it. It's easy.
So basically, if you were going to do this, you would need to be on title and be on the loan. You would be on title and on the loan for a different one, and then alternate back and forth, keeping them completely separate. And there's a kind of a do you trust the spouse to not run away with your property sort of conversation that you guys should have outside of the classroom. But you should have that conversation with an attorney. Okay, so you got to trust your spouse. Or if you're kind of alternating, that it's easily divisible if you decide to get a divorce after 10.
Best title as a married man or a married woman, right? And in the state of Colorado, it kind of sticks it to you there. So
Oh, I don't know about this, Ro.
you're not vesting as a single man, right?
Oh, I don't know.
You vest as a married man.
Yeah, I don't know. My wife's not letting me go anywhere, I don't think. So, okay, cool. So you can do 20 if you're married and alternate between spouses. The neighborhood we had modeled over in Windsor was a USDA-approved neighborhood. So technically, you really don't even need the 1% down. I'm going to blow your mind right now. So that $3,000 thing I said at the beginning doesn't even really apply. We could have done USDA over in Village East, couldn't we? And so it could have been a nothing down loan program where you were able to do this whole thing with nothing down. Make sense? Also, I will point out that you don't know if Berthoud is, do you? Is Berthoud USDA? Yeah. Okay, so the ones in Berthoud and the ones in Wellington are both USDA approved areas as well. So you could even do nothing down in those too. So it really could be nothing down there. And there are 3% down programs for house 2 and 3. Talked about that, so it doesn't really need to be 5. When I did the original assumptions, I disregarded depreciation. Depreciation is a tax benefits you get from owning rental property. And so I ignored that when I did the by hand model. The new model tonight includes it. And I'm assuming a tenant buyer buys after 4 years. So let's walk through this. So I go buy my first house. I move in. I put 1% down. I move in. I live there for 9 months. At the 9-month point, I start marketing in order to find a tenant buyer. A tenant buyer is a tenant who's going to move in, rent the property for a year, year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is, and then eventually they're going to buy it from me. So it's pre-agreed upon upfront that they're going to buy it from me. So I go to Ty and I say, Ty, looks like you want to be a tenant buyer. I will allow you to rent my property for a year or 2, and at the end of the 2-year period, you have to buy from me. And we're going to agree upon a price up front. Okay? So is it possible that I go and I find Ty, and Ty says, great, and he wants to close in year 1? Is that possible? He could close in year 1. So basically, it would take 2 years for me to buy the property and actually sell it. I move in for 1 year. Ty lives there for 1 year, the second year, and then at the end of that, he actually cashes me out and buys the property. Is that possible? So that would be a 2-year one. Okay? Let's say Ty goes in there, he lives there for a year, lives there for another year, and at the end of that one, he buys. Okay? That would have been a 3-year plan. What happens if Ty goes in there, he lives there for a year, and he gets transferred away for work? He has to go back to LA. LA is Louisiana, by the way. Okay? And he goes back to LA, right? Is that possible then that I could go find Kim, who says to me, hey, I want to be a tenant buyer. I want to now move into your property, and I'm going to go live there for a year before I buy it. So maybe Ty moves in for a year. He moves out of the area, says, I don't need to buy it anymore. I'm going to walk away. Okay, great. Kim's going to do it. Now she has a year or 2 years in order to go buy it. And let's say she buys it, and it takes 2 years for her. 1 year for me living there, a year for Ty, and then 2 years for Kim. That's 4 years total. Okay? Or any variation thereof. Maybe it's Ty for a year, Connor McLeod, or whatever, Connor McGregor. Anyone know who Connor McLeod is? Anyone else besides Patrick? Oh, you do. You know too? No. Oh, okay, cool. Anyway, he's immortal in case you didn't know. So Connor actually, right? He's immortal. He's the Highlander. Oh, that guy. Yeah, Connor McLeod, Clan McLeod. He's immortal. So Connor moves in for a year, and then Kim moves in for a year, and then eventually she buys the property. Is it possible I could go through 3 different people and have that work? Totally. So what we're saying is, my assumption is it's going to take us 1 year to live there, and then 3 years of either Ty doing the whole thing or split up between any number of tenant buyers before they actually cash me out of the property. Is it possible, on average, it takes me 5 years to do one? Sure. Is it possible it takes 6 years to do one? What about 7? Yeah, it's possible one could go extremely long. But there could be other ones that go in a year. So you got to take that into account. So on average, we said it's going to take 4. I assumed when I did the math by hand, the profit was not increasing, although it does, mathematically. So when I did it originally, I did not assume the profit increased. I assumed that there was a $45,000 profit on Nomad properties. I move in, I live there. Ty buys it from me a year or 2 or 3 later, and at the difference between what I paid the debt down and what the property appreciated was $45,000. That's what the profit was. Does that seem reasonable? This is, by the way, anytime during the presentation, if you want to kind of reach into your pocket and throw up the yellow BS flag, feel free. So I want to handle your objections as they come up. Jeff? 3%, and I'm going to go through the assumptions. But let's assume it's a $300,000 property, which is approximate, and we're saying the property value goes up 3% a year. Well, 3% on $300,000 property is $9K a year. If it takes 4 years, there's $36,000 right there. Plus you have debt pay down. Okay? So between those 2 things alone, you should see 45. And that's actually on 300. 10 years from now, when we're still doing the model, it's still 45. That's what I mean by the profit didn't increase, even though in reality it does. Okay? And tonight I'm going to do the real math, but these were my assumptions originally. And then 100K profit from 20% down, it includes getting the 20% down payment back. So think about it, $300,000 property, what's 20% down? 60K. So I said I made 45K profit plus 60K back. So 100K is actually conservative, right? So I should make about the same amount of profit on that one. Make sense? Okay. More assumptions. Assuming you wait for the tenant buyer with a 5% option fee when exiting your Nomad property. So here's a scenario. I move in year 1, I put 1% down. I live there for a year. Once I start getting close to the year time frame, 9 months or so, I start marketing to try to find Ty. So I don't know him yet, right? So if I don't find Ty by the time it's a year, I'm not moving out. I'm continuing to wait. I'm going to market until I find Ty, and a very specific type of Ty. Ty who has 5% down. If he doesn't have 5% down, I say to Ty, I'm sorry, Ty, in this particular case, I cannot offer you this property on a lease option. I need 5% down in order to be able to do it. Otherwise, I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. Okay? So I wait for someone with 5% down to do that. Is it unusual to find someone who has 5% down to do a lease option? What do you think? Yes? No? Patrick, you see a lot of people coming to you all day long looking to borrow money. Are there a lot of people out there that have $15,000 down who can't qualify for a loan? And they would be willing to do a lease option. Is it like really rare? Is it like one a month? Is it like one a week?
There's a lot of people that for whatever reason can't. They have a debt income problem, or they had something derogatory on their credit where they have to wait 18 months before they can get a mortgage.
Okay.
There are specific dates, right? If you had a bankruptcy, you might have to wait until May of 2018. That doesn't mean that they don't qualify or that they couldn't get a loan today if they didn't. It just means they can't get a loan for 18 months.
Is $15,000 a lot of money for someone coming to buy a house? Do most of your borrowers have more than $15,000 for down payment?
I don't know. I have a big variety, but yeah, I mean, they're either going to get it, they either have
Okay.
through a parent. I mean, that helps too with a lot of people, but most people have at least 3 to 5% down in our market that I'm talking to.
Okay, so 3% down is at a minimum. What's the FHA down payment? 3.5. So most people, if they're going to have some credit challenges, are probably going FHA because it's one of the easiest loans to qualify for, right? So they're probably going to need at least 3.5% to do that. So it seems relatively reasonable to be able to find a tenant buyer that has 5% down. Is it going to be that every person you call is going to have 5% down? Heck no. In my experience, it's more like 1 out of 10, 1 out of 15. So you have to take a bunch and go through it. Now, one thing I do want to say about this model. This model, Nomad in general, is actually a relatively easy model. You move in, you live there for a year, you convert it to a rental. It's really not that hard. This version of Nomad, where you're able to do it with basically one $3,000 down payment, you're trading your own labor and hard work and effort, your hustle, in order to get it done. Because there's a lot more work involved in this model than there is in traditional, just buy the house, convert it to a rental, and keep the rentals long term. You got to go find tenant buyers. You have to sell the properties. You have to go replace the properties you're selling off. There's more effort and labor and hustle involved. Does that make sense to everybody? So you're trading this effort for less down payment. Okay. All right, so talk about this. So I got to wait for TIE, a special version of TIE with 5% down. If I don't find 5% down, I wait. I do not do anything. I just wait until I find somebody. I keep marketing and keep looking for them. Why do we require 5%? Why don't I say, you know, Ty, you've got $5,000 coming from your tax return. Why don't we just use the 5K? Why do I make sure that he has 15 down or whatever the number is? I need it for the next property for the down payment. If I don't have his 5% down, guess what? I don't have enough for the down payment unless I have more than the $3,000 I started with. So how many people were asking, I'll get to your question, remind me. So how many people said it's easier if you have more than 3? Raise your hands if you said that. You're right, because now I don't need to wait for Ty with 5%. I can choose, if Ty is really qualified otherwise, and all he has is 10, I can say, I will accept Ty because I've got $5,000 to make up the difference on this one. Does that make sense? So it's totally easier to do this. But if I'm willing to, I can wait for Ty to come in with 5% down. Jeff?
So this really assumes that you can find the ideal place to move into next home.
That's true.
Even sub-ideal, like, it really assumes that so that you can move in immediately to your next place.
Oh yeah, I'm going to make that assumption in a minute. I think it's, yeah, there's a slide where I say all this, basically in my model, everything happens on January 1st, right? Which doesn't happen. It's going to get sloppy. But you could definitely find someone with 6% down that makes up that slack. Or you could go find a property where the numbers are a little bit better than this. Because in my opinion, this is like a new house. These are pushing the numbers. If you go and you pick a property in G-Town that has a better price to rent ratio, it works better. It works better than these numbers. This is like pushing the envelope of sort of where you want to go price range for most people and the rent to price ratio. But you also have new construction, and there's some benefits to doing that. Okay. Is it unreasonable to ask for 5%? We talked about that. FHA loan, which is what a lot of people with poor credit are going to get, is 3.5%. We're assuming tenant buyer for 20% down purchases also had an option fee for 3%. In the other model I did, I assumed it was a 3% option fee. I will tell you for tonight, after kind of the hard-coded example, I changed it to 5 for both. Makes it mathematically easier. I rounded up to the nearest 1K. I changed this for a new model, only 5% tonight. Assuming tenant buyer properties, when putting 20% down, have break-even cash flow. So when I did the model by hand, I said no positive cash flow for 20% down properties. I assumed that you just had break-even cash flow. I did say you had negative cash flow for the 5% down ones. I'll show you that. So, Patrick, were the rules for lending exactly the same a decade ago as they are today? No. Are the rules next year automatically going to be the same as this year? So is it possible that we make this very elaborate plan and the stuff I tell you tonight ends up changing next year? Is that possible? Sure. So I have no control over what Patrick's lenders decide to do, but it's possible they could come and say, no more of this 1% down loan program, or no more of this 5% down loan program. I need you to come up with 10% down. Or they may say, you know, you have to live in the property for 2 years now. Or they may say you can only have 6 loans in your name now. They could change any of these rules. Now, a lot of these rules have been in place for a while, and we don't have anything that says, oh, they're definitely changing this rule next year, do we? No. So all the rules we're talking about tonight, there's nothing immediately on the horizon that says they're going to change, but realize they can change. Everyone with me? Okay. So this is the handout. If you had come to the class, you got a copy of this thing. Everyone's zooming in trying to read this, right? You don't need to read it. We're going to skip this one tonight. But this was the one I did by hand. And if you want to go see like the explanation of this, go watch the how to come up with a down payment or whatever the name of that class was that I taught. Because I go through this line by line. And I walk people through what each of the numbers are and everything else. And I gave people a handout when they did it. So you can go see that. Okay? We're not covering that tonight, but that was the old math by hand thing, which was crazy. All right, so here are the new modeling assumptions. Similar properties currently for sale in Berthoud and Wellington. So I was basing the original one off of something in Windsor. There are properties that are very similar in Berthoud and Wellington. I will tell you the numbers are a little bit worse than what we're seeing on here. The prices have gone up, which we expect in our marketplace, and the rents have not gone up as much as the property values have gone up. Plus, I think interest rates have risen a little bit since last year. So we're seeing a hit in multiple fronts. It's what we talked about. How many people came to the stats class where I told you about how it's harder and harder to find positive cash flow properties in our market, right? Property values are going up, rents are going up, but not quite as much, and interest rates are going up, which make our monthly payment higher. So it's harder and harder to find positive cash flow properties in northern Colorado. Okay? We could pick less expensive properties or pick properties with slightly better rent to price ratios. And by the way, it's not price alone. It's not let's find cheaper properties. Because we could go up in value. We could do $500,000 houses with this. Really what it comes down to is a ratio of price to rent or rent to price. We want ones with better economics, one where you can get more rent for the same dollar value you spend. So this property, in my opinion, is probably in the top 5 to 10% of properties that are available in our marketplace. And that's really where we want to be with Nomad properties. We're not just buying any old property in the MLS. We're being picky? We're kind of saying, I want to pick good properties, and so we're eliminating 90% of the crap, and we're only looking at the top 10%. And then we're picking properties from there. Now, are you willing, because you got to live in these properties and move in for a year, are you willing to sometimes trade economic factors, like the ratio price to rent, in exchange for granite countertops, hardwood floors, school district, location of property for commute to work? Are you willing to make those trade-offs where it has worse numbers than what we're showing up here, but it has better characteristics for you to live in? Sometimes are we doing that? Yeah, for Nomad stuff. If you were just buying it as an investment, you might not make that trade-off. So the amount you need up front is sensitive to rent you can collect on the property. I will tell you, if you change the rent numbers on my model, it pretty dramatically impacts everything on the property. If you go from $1,850 in rent to $1,800, that's a pretty significant impact overall, because it gets compounded over a very long period of time over multiple properties. In fact, Brendan and I were doing some math once where we determined the sensitivity is greatest for rent and not nearly as sensitive for price. Didn't we determine that? Like, you can afford to pay $10,000 more for a property. It doesn't affect things nearly as much as kind of a sensitivity to rent, where if you change rent by a little bit, it actually has a bigger impact. It's counterintuitive in some ways. Okay. The less rent you can collect, the more you'll need to cover negative cash flow. So where are the people that said having more money makes this easier? You're right. If you have more money, you can pick a property that has more negative cash flow because you can afford to feed it. So let's walk through the assumptions. So this is based on a real entry-level new construction property available now in our local market, although it's not technically now. Last time it was now in Windsor. Now it's sort of now in Wellington. And the numbers are not exactly the same. I think the sale price of the one in Wellington is like $288 instead of $286. Okay? The appreciation rate, we're assuming 3% growth rate. Fort Collins has seen 4% over a long period of time. Loveland has seen 3%. Rents, initial rent is $1,825 a month. Does anyone have a problem with $1,825 a month on a $285,000 property in Windsor or now in Wellington and Berthoud? Anyone think that's high or low? If you have objections, let's hear them now. You think it should be higher?
I think that number's high.
You think that's high? By how much?
Probably about $150.
For which city?
Berthoud.
Berthoud?
I think probably around 1,700.
I have data points that suggest otherwise for Berthoud. But, I mean, you could be right. So let me ask you this question. Let's just kind of deal with this now. So Ty, who wants to buy the property from me, not just rent it, I tell him, hey, listen, Ty, the rent is $1,700 a month. But you want to buy from me. And if you were going to buy from me, you would need to be able to make this payment. Because it's actually going to be more than probably what you're paying in rent. Taxes, insurance, PMI type thing, right? So Ty, I want to collect from you $1,825 a month for rent. Is he going to balk at that because he has a chance to buy the property?
Probably not.
Probably not. So is it possible to get slightly above market rent if we're doing a lease option on a property instead of just a straight rental? So is it possible you think we can get $1,825 on this property then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you can, and it's a year-old house.
It's a year-old house.
We're talking about higher rent for properties that are 1, 2, and 3 years old by the time you move, you know what I mean? So
Agreed.
you're gonna get better rent on a brand new construction than you are on some 1970s bungalow that hasn't been updated.
I totally agree with that too. Yep. Okay, apparently there's something really important I was going to write here. I don't remember what it was though, but it started with R. So if anyone knows, let me know about that. All right, so $1,825, and we're also assuming rent is going up at 3% a year. How many people think that rent and appreciation go up at about the same rate? Anyone disagree with me? You don't think they do? They do. They do though, over a very long period of time. We are seeing an anomaly in our marketplace where property prices are going up so fast that rents are not keeping up. But eventually, it reverses and it slows down. I looked at charts, and actually I think you were at this one where we went over appreciation. And I showed you a chart during appreciation where I showed you house prices to rent values and that they were jumping up and over the line, but they were keeping pace with the line itself for house prices. And so over a very long period of time, they do. I agree with you that in the short term, we can see things where rents are lagging behind home prices. Home prices went up like 10% last year, but rents only went up 3%. Does that make sense? So over a long period of time, we totally see that. And so I've used the same assumption because we're doing this model over, I think tonight I'm going to do 22 years. Okay? So over a 22-year period, it's going to be about that. Okay. Seasonality to rent. Do you think if I tried to rent this for $1,825 in January, that I'm going to get $1,825? Probably not. What if I tried to rent it in May or June? Some seasonality, right? And so I'll probably be able to do that. If you want to hear, I did like 2 hours on why these numbers are good numbers to use on this class. So if you want to go watch it, you can go watch it there. Okay? Any questions on home price, rent, and appreciation rates for both? Sweet. Okay, cool. Closing costs and mortgage. So seller concessions, baked into that price is like a $5,000 seller concession from the builder. So we use that in order to cover closing costs. Patrick, is $5,000 enough to cover most closing costs on a property of this nature? Is it enough for all of it? Okay. So basically, we can cover all of the closing costs for doing the loan with a 2% seller concession, so we don't have to come out of pocket for anything there. Down payment percentage. We've been talking about this all night. We're using 5%. Loan interest rate. What's the interest rate for today, Patrick? Approximately. What's that? 4 1/8. 4 1/4. So like 4.125 or 4.25. So is 4.5 a conservative number to use? Okay, so 4.5 is a conservative number we're using for that. Any questions on closing costs and mortgage interest rate? Okay. HOA, taxes, and insurance. The HOA in this particular case, in Village East, there was no HOA, but there were higher metro taxes. And so what I did is I did HOA at 0 with a 3% appreciation, which 3% of nothing is nothing. And then 0.5% insurance. Where's insurance, Brian? Brian, $286,000 property, insurance is going to be about $1,500 a year. Is that reasonable? Conservative. So 0.5% new build. Yep. So 0.5% of the value of the property is what we're estimating for insurance. Okay? So I think that's a conservative number to use, and that's what we're using here. 0.5% of the value of the property. So as the property value goes up, the insurance also goes up. Okay? Property tax rate. So normally, I looked at Wellington earlier today, it was like 0.65 is what we're seeing for the ratio of the price of the property that it sells for and the taxes we're getting on it. Because this one's in a metro taxing district, I used 0.75, which is a little bit higher than I would normally use. So we're saying that on a $286,000 property, that's probably looking like, I don't know, $2,100? $2,100 a year? Does that seem reasonable for people for taxes on a property? Okay, so that's what we're using for that. Now, in the one in Wellington, instead of having the higher tax rate, it actually has a $250 a year HOA. Okay, so imagine the $2,100 in taxes, you're now paying $1,700, but you really are paying $250 for the HOA, which since they're both growing at that same 3% rate, it's like a wash. Does everyone follow? Anyone have a problem with what I just did? Okay.
250 sounds pretty low
For the HOA?
a year.
It is. It is what the HOA is. I looked in the MLS. So it's not like I made it up and I'm guessing. It's an actual number. No, all it is like common area maintenance. Yeah, it's like, keeping the sign clean into the neighborhood. That's basically what that is. Okay? All right, continuing on. Did I skip a slide? All right, so maintenance reserve. So what we do is we take the amount of rent we collect and we multiply it by whatever percentage we have here, and we set that money aside for maintenance on the property. So we're saying 12% we're setting aside of the rent coming in, the gross rent coming in, for maintenance. I will tell you, on a new construction property, that's really high, which is what we're talking about modeling here. However, on a regular property, that's actually probably a good number to use. Okay? So we've used 12%. I think that's conservative in this case. And then we're saying property management, sorry, but property management is actually going to be self-managed in this case. If you were going to hire property management and there's going to be cash flow later to do it, not early on, then you would go hire property management and do that, Eddie, as an example. Okay? So you go do that. But up front, we're actually saying we're keeping that cash. We're hustling to do it and make the numbers work. Other assumptions. These are assumptions I use in other presentations. For example, I model if you're using houses to pay for college, we start with a yearly college cost. Oh, by the way, there's a really good article just in USA Today a couple days ago about the rising cost of college. Now, colleges have been increasing at like a rate of 8% per year. Did anyone else see that article? Some ridiculous number. So $40,000 per year is what we're estimating for college. I'm not using that tonight. Appreciation rate for college, 5%. Stock market rate, 10%. We're not using that. Income rate, I am using this. Income tax rate. So there's an argument we have in class whenever I teach Nomad. And it's unfortunate Brian's not here tonight to have the argument continue. But basically, what we use for income tax is we try to say this is the effective tax rate that you're getting on a property. 20%. So 20% of the income on the property, and we're actually going to multiply the depreciation by the income tax rate in order to find out how much of the income we have that we can actually not pay taxes on, so it improves cash flow on a property. Okay? So that's this 20% tax rate number there. Now, what Brian argues is, in order to get a 20% effective tax rate, you need to be making like $170,000 a year, something ridiculous like that. I thought about this more since our last conversation. And really, if you're actually making, let's say $100,000 a year to make it easier, you're making $100,000 a year and you depreciate $9,000, the $9,000 is at the highest tax rate, right? Because you're actually saving the top end. You're going from 100 to 92. And so really your savings is at whatever the highest tax rate you're at, not necessarily the effective tax rate. Am I thinking about that right? Yeah. So Brian loses again. There we go. So basically, I think my number is actually safer than I originally thought. I used to tell him I think it's actually a little high. I think of all the conservative numbers I use, this is the one I could be challenged on most. But now, after I think about it, I don't actually think it is challengeable. I think that that's actually the highest rate you're getting discounted on. Okay. Inflation rate, we're not using that tonight, but I can make numbers and show you what the inflation is. And this is just which image I show on there. Oh, depreciation recapture. So when I do the math on there, is it getting warm in here? A little warm? Maybe open the door for a few minutes. So basically, the depreciation recapture, when you sell a property, you have to pay back or pay a tax or some way of describing it. But basically, all the depreciation you took, you need to pay 25% of it back to the government when you sell a property. And so I do take that into account in our math. Okay? Any other questions? Anything on this? Okay, cool. So lease option exit. These are additional assumptions. So I'm saying we're starting off with $3,000 in cash. If you're starting off with 50, you could put this in the calculator and it can actually redo the model and say, you have enough to buy a property earlier than year 5. Okay? Years until lease option closes, we're assuming 4 years. I already talked to you about that. Option fee percentage, it's 5%. So we're getting tied to come in with 5% as an option fee that we can then use for down payments. Long-term cap gains rate, 15%. Denise, does that seem reasonable? 15% long-term cap gains rate. So we're using that. We're going to actually pay taxes on any of the profits we have coming out to make sure we're talking about real dollars we can spend, not like you get 60 and you try to spend 60, it's you get 60, you pay your cap gains, you pay back depreciation, and then you can use that money in order to do your down payment on your next property. And then I'm showing you what year we're showing, but in this case, we're not doing that. Okay. So where did you ask me about all the stuff? This is January 1st. That's the important note. Okay. So in order to kind of figure out this model, I need to come up with a consistent way of dealing with each year. And so this is kind of my order of operations. So each year on January 1st, we sell any houses that we had lease options on. We assume that at the very beginning of the year, the lease option tenant buyer closes out the property on January 1st and buys it from us. Okay, just so that I can do the model. The next thing that happens is we find any tenant buyers on any previous property that we had. So the house that I'm moving out of, we get a tenant buyer to give us that option fee so I can put it in the bank account and use that money for the down payment for the next house. Okay? We buy the Nomad property. So if we have enough to buy a Nomad property with 5% down, we do that at this point. And then if we have enough for 20% down properties, we buy 20% down properties. And if we don't have enough, we don't buy them. Okay? We collect the lease option fees on any 20% down properties we bought. So if we bought a 20% down property, we would buy the property, and then we would put our tenant buyer in there, and we would collect an option fee from them. And then after that, we collect rents on any properties that are rented. Because we're starting on January 1st, we're getting rent for the rest of the year on any properties that we own. The next January, we start this whole thing over again. Now, in reality, is this all happening on January 1st? Not a chance. Not a chance at all. And so expect some slop. Expect some flexibility in dates and deadlines here. And you may be selling your property on one day and waiting 30 days for the other and so on. Yeah?
You're gonna go over how to deal with the selling the property and then not have a place to move for them?
Yeah, so on that one, you actually tell your tenant buyer that you need to find a replacement property before they can do it. But if you're doing new construction, you have some planning that you can do. And in a normal market, it shouldn't be as big of a deal. In our crazy market, yeah, it's probably a big deal. Okay? But they'll be flexible on the other end to a reasonable degree. And if they don't, I can't do it until I find another property. If you need to leave, we'll do it, and I'll just find another person. So.
Also, another question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a lease option tenant buyer that's actually a roommate of yours for the first year? Is that a possibility?
Probably. I'd have to think that one through. You definitely can have roommates that are paying rent, and that's like a huge score. But as far as having a lease option tenant buyer for year one, probably. See any problem with that?
So they're living with you now?
I don't.
Well, in this hypothetical, they're living with you now as your roommate, and they signed a lease option today, gave you 10 grand, but they're still your roommate, and you still live there?
Something that doesn't quite seem right about that, but I don't know what off the top of my head. It's unusual. I've never heard it asked before.
Well, they're only renting a certain. Their rent is considered border rent, right? Because it's not a full lease for the full property, so they're just renting a room from you, lease optioning the total property. You can't do it. I have a feeling an underwriter would say no. I'm not an underwriter, so I would argue against them. I'm just telling you, worst case scenario, they're probably going to say that's an inducement or that's a gift from his room to his buddy. Like,
What if you got the lease option fee at the end of the year?
Like you're able to front the money and get it later?
well, then I would just rent him. So I would just have a border rent agreement, right? Rent one room, and then at the end of the year, just convert it to a true lease option. I don't think there's a benefit to having them pay it to you ahead of time while you're still on the property.
Well, the benefit is it's more security. But we can talk about that later. It's a little nuanced thing. Definitely come talk to me. We can sit down and figure that one out.
Get weird about the source
Yeah.
of funds and like, your roommate gave you 10 grand. That's
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to get that after you bought the house.
So this is actually a great point. I don't know if I do have a bullet point here, so I want to bring it up while I'm thinking about it. So before you go and run any plan that you have, you need to go talk to your lender. And you need to say to your lender, okay, so here's what I'm thinking about doing. And it really helps if you have a lender that understands Nomad. Because like 90% of the people you go to and you tell them you want to do this, they're like, why would you ever want to do that? You're crazy. Just sell the property. Right? So you really need a lender that understands. And there's very few people that understand it. So go talk to Patrick and say, okay, Patrick, I want to do the Nomad model. I'm thinking about doing a lease option tenant buyer from here. What paperwork and documentation do you need in order for me to be able to do this correctly so that I can use it and I don't get myself in trouble where I go under contract on a property and then I find out I can't use that source of funds? Better to do it up front in advance to make sure you have everything lined up correctly. right? Okay. So we'll talk about this. Important note, reality, you're not doing this all in January 1. All right, so year 1, halfway through. Okay, good. We're good on time, I think. All right, so at the beginning of the year, we actually show you the amount you have in your bank account. $3,000 in your bank. 1% down that you need in order to do this is $2,860. So you have enough in order to buy a 1% down property starting in year 1. So year 1, here's the order of operations. Sell any houses. Do we own any houses in year 1? No, we haven't bought anything yet. Find a new tenant buyer in the previous Nomad property. Do we have a Nomad property to find a tenant buyer for? No, we do not. No previous Nomad property. Buy Nomad property, then buy 20% down properties. We're buying our first Nomad property. We're going to look at this one on the next slide. We do not have enough to buy 20% down homes. Nothing to buy. Collect lease option fees on new 20% down. No new 20% down. No new lease option fees to collect. Collect rents on properties that are rented. We're buying our first property and moving in. Do we have rent? No, you're living there. Now, if you have roommates, you do, but I did not model that. So basically, you're moving into the property, no rent in year 1. Okay, so value of homes in year 1. The property value is $286,000 when you buy it. You have $3,000 in your bank. 1% down payment for our first Nomad home would be $2,860. This property would also qualify for USDA, which is nothing down, which we're not talking about, but we're modeling using 1. Additional Nomad properties down the road would be 5% down, not the 1. Closing costs are covered by seller concessions. Any problems with me buying a house?
Are the closing costs always covered by seller concessions?
No. You need to negotiate the seller concessions, and then negotiated amount can actually either cover them or not cover them.
So it's strict that you must be there a year, could be 10 months, 11 months, it must be.
You should plan on a year. There may be some really unusual exceptions where you could do it shorter period of time, but I would plan on a year for every single one. Is that correct?
You can't accelerate this, you have to go 1 per year, something.
Yep. Yep.
Unless you're buying the ones with 20%.
Yeah, 20% down, you could do it more frequently. But for the ones you move into, the thing you sign at closing says, I will stay in this property for a year as my owner-occupant residence.
So with a 20% down, then I can.
You could buy it, not move in. It doesn't matter.
You can buy it as an investment property then. Right, so you can just, you pay a higher interest rate, but it will be classified as an investment property.
Yep.
And there's really rare situations where you can do it for less than 12 months. Like you get relocated for a job, you get married, you have twins, something that gives you a
job.
reason.
I'm in that area where I would be relocated
Yeah.
multiple times, but that would be valid.
Yeah, more than 100 miles.
It's 100 miles from your current job is the relocation.
Yep, not north-south,
Bigger
North Fork
ones,
Cons and
if
South
you
Fork
got
Cons.
married, or there's a life event, or maybe you got divorced, or now you're having kids and you're in a 2-bedroom condo and now you got to move up. Those are reasons to maybe do it sooner, but underwriters will scrutinize that.
Really closely.
Number one thing, because it's fraud for occupancy is the way they look at it.
Yep. Okay. So I occasionally have people come to these Nomad classes and they're like, okay, James explained this great model. He's got all this detail and stuff like that. I'm going to improve on it. I'm going to figure out a way to kind of do this and do 6-month periods of time, and I'm going to commit loan fraud. Do not do it. The model is amazing enough without you trying to screw with the model. Don't try to improve on what I did. Okay. Don't commit loan fraud. Brian will tell you stories about a tenant he had that committed loan fraud and went to prison. So don't do it. It's no joke. It's serious stuff. Okay. So minimum gross monthly income in year 1. This is the amount of money you need in order to buy the $286,000 property. I assume a 45% debt to income ratio. Is that what's required for this loan? 45 for the 5% though? Okay, so this is about what you need in income in order to qualify for the loan. It assumes you have absolutely zero other debt. Where are my student loan people? I'm sorry for you, okay? Because that really hurts you, unfortunately, okay? But you need to have this with no other debt, no car payment, no credit card payments, nothing else like that in order to get this number. If you have additional debt, you need to make $222.22 more for every $100 that you want to borrow for your loan, okay? So if you have a car payment that's $600, then you need 6 times 222, or about $1,300 more per month in order to cover a $600 a month car payment. That's crazy. So don't do it. Try to keep your debt minimized, except for houses, when you're doing Nomad. Right? Did I say everything correctly? Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. So really, in order to do this monthly for your household, it's 2 of you, household $3,850 a month, gross income, assuming no other debt. Does that make sense? Does that seem in the ballpark? Did I do my math right? Okay, good. Appreciation. So you bought a $286,000 house. It goes up 3%. It went up $8,580 in year one. That's a 300% return on your investment. You go and you put a property, you buy it 1% down. You now made $8,580 just in appreciation in year one. You just made a 300% return on your money. It's pretty good. Paying down the loan in year one. You paid down $4,568 on your single loan in year one by doing this model. So that's 160% return on your $2,860 that you put into the property. This, by the way, paying down debt, is as close to a guaranteed return as you can get without me saying the words guaranteed return, which I hate to say. Because there's really nothing in life that's guaranteed. But if you make your mortgage payments, you actually pay off $4,568 in year one. As long as you make that payment, that is what you actually gained. So it's as close to guaranteed as you can get. If you make the payment, you get that return. There's no depreciation or cash flow in year one. Why don't we have depreciation or cash flow? We're living in the property. Why not? Why don't we get depreciation though? Can't depreciate non-rental income property. Yeah. If you have roommates, you can do partial. That's correct. But we're not assuming that in this case. We're not assuming we rent it out. But you're right. You can. You can get depreciation in that case. And rent and cash flow. Okay. So any other questions on this? I think if you decide to get roommates, there you go. You might actually get income and could depreciate part of the property. See the Young Professional Nomad for details on that model of renting it. Yeah?
Are you saying this model doesn't work if you have student loans?
I'm saying you need to make more money in order to have the same qualification that we just put up there. So if you have, $300 a month in student loans, now you need to make $700 more per month in order to cover the $300 in student loans.
And if you don't make that, then
You can't qualify for a $380,000 or $286,000 property. You need to look at cheaper stuff. Make sense? So this is assuming you're buying a $286,000 property. That $3,850 is what you need to make, assuming you have no other debt. If you have other debt, you need to make more in order to cover it, or buy a cheaper property. Okay? All right, so at the end of the year, you have $140 in your bank account. Okay? I'm assuming you're just making your mortgage payment, you're living there, you're paying that off. We have $140 in your bank account at the end of the year. By the way, does all the stuff I just showed you seem really, really simple? It's simple because I'm about to add on it and go crazy, freaky town, complex with all the math. Okay? So I'm taking my time, going slow, and then I'm going to start throwing like 9 numbers at a time for you. Okay? All right, so here's the infographic summary. In year 1, owner-occupant, 1 Nomad property you bought, you have no tenant buyers. Super simple. All right, year 2, second Nomad, and we're going to convert the first one to a rental. Let's follow along. Do we have any houses that we have a lease option tenant buyer in that's going to buy it? No, nothing to sell. We find a new tenant buyer on the previous Nomad. I go find Ty. I spend 2 months, 3 months, whatever it takes in order to go find Ty. Ty has 5% option fee. I'm going to use that to buy my next house. I find him, I put him in the property as a tenant buyer, right there. Buy the Nomad property, then buy 20% down. So now I have enough from Ty's option fee to buy my next property at 5% down. I do not have enough to buy any 20% down properties. He only gave me 5%, not 25%. I collect any option fees on the 20% down properties. I didn't buy one, so there's nothing to collect. I collect rents on the property that Ty is in, so I now start collecting rents from Ty. Does everyone follow along? Anyone lost? Because if you're lost here, the rest of the night's a waste. You might as well go home. Okay. Seriously, you guys need to understand where we are. Anyone lost? All right, cool. All right, so last year we started the year with $3,000. We now started this year 2 with $140. I own 1% down home, no 5% down homes, and no 20% down homes at the beginning of the year. I have a total of 1 home. I know this sounds really simple, but these are going to get freaky hard really fast. Okay? Value of homes in year 2. So now the homes are worth $294,580 when they used to be worth $286. To be clear, these are the exact same homes. We're not buying nicer homes. We're buying the same home in the same neighborhood that actually got a little bit more expensive from appreciation. So I'm not going and buying nicer homes every year. I'm buying basically the same home in the same neighborhood, in theory, for a little bit more. Same type of neighborhood. Although we can get that done if it really comes down to it. But yes, it's not the house right across the street. What's that? You know something? So I've had 2 people do this. It is not an easy move. It's actually harder to move across the street than it is to move across town, because you think it's easier to carry your stuff out across the street, but you end up carrying it like twice the distance that you do to a truck, and then from a truck back inside the house. It's really bizarre. It's not easier to move across the street. Because then you think, oh, I can take my time. I'll just move this one room. I'm tired. Let me go sleep. Which house am I sleeping in? All right, so the property values went up basically 3%, 286 to 294 and some change. They're just a little bit more expensive, but they're the same type of house. Find a new tenant buyer in previous Nomad. So we're finding Ty. 5% option fee of $294,580 is $14,729, not 5% of their purchase price. Because the purchase price Ty is going to get is not the price of the property I'm buying. We're going to give him a price based on when he buys. Okay? So kind of an interesting thing. If he needs 3.5% down, it might be really close to 3.5% is what he needs. We just tell him this dollar amount. We need $15K from you. Okay? You'll be using this as your down payment on your next Nomad property, so you'll either collect it before you buy the next one, talk to your lender about creating the proper paper trail, or have more than $3,000 where you can spot the $15,000 you need to buy it, and then when he moves in, you get that back, and you reimburse yourself. So remember the people that said it's easier to do if you have more money? Absolutely right. I don't have to get it from him before he moves in. I can wait until we're halfway through closing or whatever it is, because I have enough money to make up that down payment for the next one, and then I can just reimburse myself from that money that I'm getting from Ty. Does that make sense? Okay. You need to hold out to find a tenant buyer with this amount. I think I've emphasized that enough. Start marketing 90 days prior, and we have 2 classes on marketing for tenants and Nomad with lease option exit overview where we talk about how to find those. Okay. So appreciation year 2. Now we've got 2 houses. The house we bought in year 1 and the house we bought in year 2, they both went up $8,837 in that year for a total appreciation amount of $17,000 and change. Does everyone follow? All I did is add the 2 together to find out how much total appreciation we had on the properties. 2 houses. This shows you visually, this was appreciation year 1. This is appreciation year 2 on the 2 houses we own. Seems really simple now. It's going to get complicated. This is how much debt we paid down. $4,515 on the new house, $4,778 on the house we bought last year, for a total debt pay down that year of $9,292. Everyone follow? Okay. This was last year's debt pay down. This is the debt pay down for this year for 2 houses. By the way, does debt pay down increase over time? Are you paying down more on a house you own in year 2 than you bought in year 1? Yes, you are. It increases each year. All right, cash flow in year 2. We put 1% down. If we had put 20% down on the property we bought, we would have had positive cash flow. Okay? We only put 1% down. We do not have positive cash flow. Really what you did, in my mind, is you said, hey, listen, instead of me putting $60,000 down as a down payment, I'm going to put $3,000 down as a down payment, and I'm going to make monthly payments over time to make up what I didn't put down originally. Okay? And so the amount you're actually putting down, the amount you're paying yearly is negative $1,643. So you now had to come out of pocket. Instead of coming up with $57,000 more dollars, you need to come up with $1,600 and change each year in order to handle negative cash flow on that one property. Okay? Does everyone follow along with what I just said? Anyone lost? Okay. Now, it's not as bad as what I just said. You really do have negative cash flow, but you're going to have tax benefits, depreciation, to help offset that. Okay? So financing down payment, talked about that, but wait, depreciation. So gross depreciation. Where are my really geeky engineer guys? There we go. Okay, so everyone know how depreciation works, right? Basically, you buy a house, let's call it a $300,000 property. You take off the value of the land. You cannot depreciate raw land, guys. Okay? So $300,000 property, let's say you say the land is worth $50K. Get rid of the $50K. Now you've got a building worth $250,000. That amount of money you can depreciate over 27.5 years for residential real estate. So $250,000 divided by 27.5 years, you get a number that looks a lot like $8,840. Now, depreciation works like this. I'm not a tax expert. Go talk to a tax accountant person, whatever you want to do. But this is how it works. Let's say I make $100,000 a year, and now I have almost $9,000 in depreciation. What I do at the end of the year is I say, okay, I made 100. I could depreciate $9,000, so really I'm only going to pay tax on $91,000. I could take $9K, or whatever depreciation amount is, off of my income, and now I'm only paying tax on a lower amount. So really, I'm not paying tax on $9,000. So if I take my tax rate and I multiply it by that 9K, I get the amount of money I'm saving in taxes, $1,768. So really, instead of paying $1,768 at the end of the year in additional taxes, I get to pay that much less. Or you go down to your HR department and you tell them you want to increase your exemptions or whatever they call them, and then you can actually see this monthly in your paycheck or biweekly in your paycheck. Okay? So really, you're ending up not paying $1,768 in taxes. How much was the negative cash flow? $1,600 and change. But I just made $1,700 and change from tax benefit. So really, if you kind of include the negative cash flow and depreciation, do I have negative cash flow? No, I do not. So this shows you last year I didn't have any depreciation. This year I have $1,768. Here it is showing the cash flow, negative $1,643 and positive $1,768. If you sum these, add them together, you get positive $125 for the year. So you have basically, squint really hard, break-even cash flow when you take into account depreciation on the property. So even though you're negative, you're about break-even. Patrick.
When you're talking about depreciation, it's not off your gross W-2 wages, it's the rent on your Schedule E that you're taking the depreciation off of, correct? So I make $100,000 W-2. I have a Schedule E, which all my rental properties show on, and I made $20,000 in rental income. My depreciation comes off of that $20,000 in rental income. It's not off my W-2 income, correct? Which, if you didn't have any deductions at all, would flow through to your income anyway. You would have made $120,000. So I guess it is coming off, right? I mean, it's the same net gain. I know the forms that I look at, and I'm trying to figure out if that benefit is true, right? Because you have a Schedule E, and that's where your rental income shows. You're taking repairs and any other deductions that you have off your gross rental income. So I guess it's effectively hitting your top dollar.
Is your monthly payment considered, is that an expense?
Yes. On the rental?
Interest, taxes, insurance, all of those are expenses against the Schedule E.
So you're talking about something different for me because I'm a real estate professional, so I think the rules are very different for me.
True, yeah.
But definitely talk to your tax advisor for that kind of nuanced stuff. But my understanding is that it works similarly to what I just described. Is that not right?
I think
Okay.
it's almost identical, right? That's right. I think it's kind of a moot point because otherwise that $20,000 would go into your adjusted gross anyway, right? Yeah. If you didn't take any deductions against your rental property, you're pulling through $20,000 in rent, and you're going to get taxed at the highest bracket on that anyway. So I guess it works out. Right?
So it's mathematically similar?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Sorry.
I'm glad. So, like I said, I'm not a tax guy. So basically, we have $125 positive when you take into account depreciation and the negative cash flow on the property. This just takes this slide and only shows the orange bands because the orange bands, when you do it later and you have like multiple years, it gets really crowded. And so I'm starting to show you just $125 net from cash flow and depreciation. Everyone follow? Yeah, Caleb.
You're depreciating that property because you rented it out the second year?
Yes. And if you don't take it, you lose it. So it's not like you're saving anything by not doing it.
Yeah, but doesn't all the rent kind of, does that count as income against it?
It does, and I think that's what he's talking about. So you're offsetting that. Okay, so income required. So last year you needed $3,850 in income, assuming no other debt and 45% debt to income, in order to buy a first house. Now you need a little bit more, $4,570 for your household. So two people need to earn $2,300 a month if you're both qualifying for the loan. Okay? Or if you've got one person that could do it, you can alternate spouses. Everyone with me? Does that seem like a lot to anybody? Okay, good. All right, cool. So here's the infographic summary. Last year we bought one. This year we bought one 5% down. And we have one that now has a tenant buyer in it. That's the greenhouse. Cash account balance at the end of the year. We had 140 last year. This year we have 265 because we had some tax benefits. All right, year 3. More nomads to keep renting. Do we have any houses to sell? No. Find new tenant buyer. We're going to hold out for another 5% down from a different Ty. And Ty's going to come in and buy our second house, put a lease option on it. We're going to buy our next one with 5% down. We don't have enough for 20% down. We're going to collect any lease option fees. We don't have any, so nothing to do. And we're going to collect rents on 2 rental properties now from Nomad. Everyone with me? Cool. So we had $3,000 at the beginning of year 1, about $140 in year 2, $200 and something in the beginning of year 3. We have 1% down home that we own, 5% down home that we own. At the beginning of the year, we own 2 properties. Property values are going up 3%. They're now worth $303. See how the slides go a little faster now? Making up time. After holding out for 5% option fee from another tie, we have enough to put 5% down to purchase the next Nomad. We do not have enough to buy any 20% down properties yet. We're going to do that later. So basically, here's what appreciation was. $85.80 in year 1, $88.37 times 2 properties in year 2. Now we've got 3 properties. Each one is $91.03 for a total of $27,000 in appreciation that year. Everyone follow? See how it's getting complicated? Debt pay down, $45.68 in year 1, $45.15 and $47.78 in year 2, and then you have 3 in year 3, $47.22, $46.50, and almost $5,000 for a total of $14,000 in low change. That's how much debt you're paying down on the 3 properties in year 3. Cash flow, we had negative $16.43 last year on the first property. This year we have negative $11.76, plus on the second property we have negative $9.76. This again is before depreciation. So now when we look at depreciation, you got to depreciate the property for $88.40 last year, one for $91.05, that's this year's, and $88.40 was the same property from last year. The total depreciation gross is $17,945, or about $18,000. This is the cash flow from depreciation. It's about $35.89 total for the 2 of them. Everyone with me? This is the summary again. We had negative almost $1,200 in cash flow, negative $1,000 in cash flow, but we had $18.21 in depreciation and $17.68 in depreciation. So you add all these together, you have $14.37 positive from the cash flow and the depreciation. Everyone with me? Okay. Yeah.
Why is depreciation changing? Is it the same depreciation?
No, because you're buying a more expensive property, and then you're taking out the value of the land, you're taking that new, more expensive property, you're dividing that by 27.5 years. But the depreciation from the property last year is the same as it was last year. That number, once it gets locked in, it's static until year 28.
It's static? Okay.
Until year 28. Yeah.
Okay, so it just
No.
Set on the fixed price and you schedule over 27.5, but the other depreciation, the house you bought next year is $8 or $10,000 more.
Yeah, I didn't
So
know that.
that's why, yeah, but it's static. For
Yep.
27.
So this one's the same as this. These 2 are the same. Year 2, year 3. Everyone with me? Cool. So this is just that same orange bar simplified. So a little bit amount of money, I don't know what that is, $100 and something. And then this is $14.37 for year 2, net, between cash flow and depreciation. How much money did you need in order to do this? $5,238 per month, assuming no other debt, between the entire household. Anyone qualifying for the loan together? Okay, summary, year 3, bought another 5% Nomad property. Now we have 2 people like Ty lease optioning the properties that we used to live in. Everyone follow? All right, here we go. Cash flow is improving. We had $265 at the end of last year. This year we have $1,702 in the bank account. Not quite enough to buy a 20% down property. Year 4, more Nomads and keep renting. Nothing to sell, hold out for the 3rd, buy a 4th Nomad property, not enough down for 20%, so we're not getting 20% lease option fee. Now we have 3 rentals from previous Nomads. So we started off with $3,000, had a little bit of cash flow at the end of year, or at the beginning of year 4, $1,702. We now own 1% down property, 1 5% down property from year 2, 1 5% down property from year 3, and no 20% down properties. We have a total of 3 homes at the beginning of the year. Nothing tricky so far, correct? Okay. I almost feel like a magician where I'm like pulling up my sleeves. I'm like, look, there's nothing up my sleeves. We're magically going to have millions of dollars here in a moment. So, all right, cool. Values of homes. $312 is what they're worth now and some change. After holding out for a 3rd tie with 5% down, we're not going to have enough to buy a 20% down, but we'll have enough to buy another Nomad property. So appreciation, we now have 4 properties. Add all of them up, $37,000 from appreciation that year. We have 4 properties we're paying down debt for. Add them all up, $19,000 in debt that we paid down in that year. We have negative cash flow, negative $695, negative $1,005, negative $495. So we have 3 that are rented. All of them have negative cash flow. That's the sum of all those. Then we have depreciation. This is 27,324, 5,465 using our tax rate to find out how much tax savings we have from it. And so we add up the negative cash flows, negative 2195, add up all the depreciations, 5,465. We have a net positive of $3,000 and change. Everybody with me? All right, moving through. So this is basically the orange line from before. 3,270 was the total. And then how much money? $5,850. It's how much you need to be making as a household in year 4. Is that scaring anybody away? This is probably one of the scarier things. If you're buying $300,000 houses, for some families, it's getting harder and harder to hit these numbers, right? Do you see if that's reasonable? All right, so what do we do? Year 4, bought another 5% down. Now we have 3 rentals. Uh-oh. Here's the money, $4,972 in your bank account. Nothing really impressive. You started off with $3,000, now you got $5,000 in your bank account, but you own 4 properties. Here's where the magic happens. First lease option tenant buyer closes. So Ty decides, I'm getting a loan, I'm buying the house from you on January 1st. We sell the original 1% down property. We hold out for the 4th tenant buyer, so we get Ty's brother to get our next property, the one we were living in. He's going to put 5% down and buy that. We're going to buy our 5th Nomad property. We do not have enough yet to buy 20% down, so we're not going to get any 20% down lease option fees. We've got 3 rentals from previous Nomads. Okay? Here's the money we started at the beginning of the year. We have about $5,000 in the bank account at the beginning of year 5. We own 1% down program. That's the one we're going to sell. We have 1, 2, 3 additional 5% down properties for a total of 4 that we own right now at the beginning of the year. Property values are worth $321,896. Now let's look at the sale. So Ty, this is what just happened. You bought a property. You bought it from us for $321,896. Pay off the remaining mortgage. We owe $258,104 on that mortgage that we got that we put 1% down on. The option fee we already received. You already gave us $15,000 when you moved in, so that's getting removed from our profit. We're not getting profit on that twice. We paid taxes on it. Taxes were at 15% plus recaptured depreciation, and that was a total of $10,688. I will tell you, this slide has a small math error on it. I'm going to show you the correct one, I think, right after this. Down payment back, so we got the $2,860 that we gave to Patrick. Not really, but we gave to Patrick as our 1% down payment when we bought the house. Make sense? We gave it to the lender.
So you know the part that we're kind of missing with the 1%, right?
What's that?
Is that they get the 2% grant.
That's true. So it's better than what we're telling you. So Patrick was saying, technically, with the particular loan program where it's 1% down, you really are pretending we're putting 3% down. The lender is actually crediting you 2%. So it's better than what I'm showing on here, but it's $6,000.
That grant doesn't have to be paid back.
No, it's a grant. It's a grant. Yeah.
So is the tax on profit, is that considered capital gain?
So long-term capital gains at 15% plus 25% recapture of the part that was depreciated.
Well, if you stay there for 2 years, would you not have to pay for that?
No. Well, if you stay there for 2 out of the last 5, then you wouldn't have to necessarily pay for that. But we're not doing that model.
Right.
Yeah. But then, because then if you do the next one, you still have to pay tax on that, right? Because you can only do that once every so many times, right? You can't just do it. You can't consecutively live 2 years and keep doing that, can you? You can? Well, you realize, too, that it's 2 years out of the last 5, but if it takes you 3 years in order to get the option on it and close out, you could be beyond that time period, too.
But you have to live in it for 2 years.
2 years out of the last 5. Yep, that's my understanding of the law, too. So if you time things perfectly, could it get a little better? Sure. We're not modeling that. We're not assuming that you have to do that. We're paying taxes on it. So I think it's more conservative to look at the numbers this way and realize that you might be able to make it better if you kind of tweak some little things. Yeah, Pierre.
I might be jumping ahead, but if for any reason you decide to not buy another house
Mhm.
with the profit from one of the sales,
Yep.
you have to pay a lot more taxes on it.
No,
Capital investment.
we're not doing 1031 exchanges. We're actually paying the tax. We can do whatever we want with that money at that time, and we're opting after we pay taxes to buy new properties. Yep, but you're paying full 15% cap gain taxes on it. Long-term cap gains. Every single property. Yep. I've tried to make it pretty conservative to do that math that way. Yep, and doing depreciation recapture. Okay. So taxes on profit and recapture depreciation. Down payment back, $2,860, so we're getting that money back there. So the total profit on the deal is $35,515. That's what's added to our bank account, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's added to bank account. It's $38,375 because it's this and this back. The profit with the option fee, if you add back in that you already got $15K of your profit, is at $50,244. How many people remember what I was using when I did the math by hand at the beginning for the profit? I think it was 45. So turns out it's more. I was being conservative when I did that math. Okay? All right, cool. So total profit, 50, 65 with the option fee or whatever it is. Oh, probably with the option fee, it's 50 rather. Profit was 35. And then added to the bank account, we get 38,375. The new bank account balance is now 43,346. So you went from $3,000 in year one to 40-something grand and owning 4 rental properties. Crazy. Okay, cool. So there is a math error in how I was doing recapture depreciation. It has since been corrected on the website, and so this is actually a screenshot from the website. It was sold for $321, paid off the mortgage $258,104, $258,104. You got your option fee back $14,729, taxes on profit $5,384. This included recapture depreciation. I broke it out. So the $5,384 is actually your taxes, and recapture depreciation was $6,630. It was a little bit more, is what it worked out to be. So the profit was $35,515. The real profit's $34,188. So it's off by about $1,000 if you do it like exactly by the book with recapture depreciation. I had a math error before. I will tell you, when you look at the numbers, it didn't matter. Okay? But I wanted to point out that there was an error, but it's close enough. It's within $1,000 bucks. Does everyone agree? Is that a problem for anybody? Anyone's like, oh no, James, you're off by $1,000. I'm out of here. Okay. All right, cool. So we had the profit of $34,188, and that's with the updated recapture depreciation calculation I was doing wrong. Okay. Buy the Nomad property, then 20% down. We don't have to hold out to find someone 5% down now because we got $40-something thousand in the bank. We can just go buy the property and wait to put someone like Ty in. So this now solves the timing issue a little bit. Okay? You don't have to wait anymore. With 5% option fee, we have more than enough 5% down to purchase the next Nomad property. We do not have enough to buy a 20% down. Okay? So we don't have enough to do that yet. That's coming. Now we own 1, 2, 3, 4 properties because we sold one. We would have had 5. We only have 4 now. So we appreciated $38,627 in that year, paid down debt of $20,000 in that year. You have negative cash flow, $510. We have one is actually $1. It's almost break even. Then you have 510 and 1035. So we have 3 that are rented, 1 we're living in. So a total of negative 1545 in cash flow. The depreciation, 28,143 on the 3 properties that we own. So 5,629 in tax benefits. So now we have negative 1545 plus 5,630 in depreciation. So we're a net positive of $4,000 on the 3 rental properties we still own. Everybody with me? Okay. So the total amount, $4,084. That's the net positive cash flow after depreciation and cash flow. The amount of money you need to make, $58.93 per month to buy the next property. Okay? Infographic summary. We bought a 5% down property. We have 3 tenant buyers in there, and the red one is we sold one. That's what the infographic means. And for those that have, Eddie, you want to show your book? At the front of the page, that's what that infographic is. It summarizes what happens each year. So we're going to get down to year 22 or whatever that is on there. But that's what that means. 20 years? Okay, so you'll see 20. I think I go to 22 in the presentation. Okay. So your cash account balance at the end of the year is $47,430. A lot bigger than the small amounts we had before. Everybody follow. This is like the, how did he do it, right? Everyone sees how I got there, even though it seems like, oh my gosh, this is not believable. It's nothing tricky, it's just simple math. Okay, cool. Year 6, first 20% down purchase. So we sell our first 5% down house. Last year we sold our first 1% down. This year we're selling our first 5%. We hold out for a 5th version of Ty that has 5% down. Buy Nomad property and then 20% down. So we're going to buy another Nomad property with 5%. We're going to buy our first 20% down property. We'll have enough this year at the end of the sale. We're going to collect the lease option fee on the 20% down. Someone else, when I taught this before, pointed out that you get rebates when you buy. You go put 20% down, but as soon as you close on it and you put your next tenant buyer in, you get 5% back. So really, you're only having to put 15% down net because you're getting it back immediately. Okay? You still need 20% up front. Collect rents on properties that are rented. We got 3 rentals from previous Nomads. and our first 20% down property. I'm going to show you the difference. Cash flow is significantly different. So at the beginning of the year, we had $47,000 and change. We owned no more 1% down. We sold that off last year. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% downs, and none 20% downs. No 20% downs starting right now. So we have 4 homes at the beginning of the year. Property values are worth $331,552. We sold the 5% down property, Ty version 2, Ty's brother. Sold it for $331,000, paid off a mortgage at $255,000. Option fee already received. We got $15K from him and a little change before. Taxes on profit, that $11,000 with the depreciation recapture. Again, this is off by about $1,000, just so you know. $14,000 is the payback of the down payment. So we made a profit of $35,537. It's really like $34,500. So the profit with the option fee is like $50,000. Added to the bank account, $50,266. New bank balance, $97,969. We got enough for a 20% down payment. Everyone follow what I just did. Sweet. Okay, we don't have to hold out for the 5% down. No more timing issues. We can go buy it. We got enough money. With 5% option fee, we have more than enough to put 5% to purchase the next one. We also have enough to buy our first 20% down. The account balance was $96,000. The down payment would be $66,000 for a 20% down property at this point. We got it. We now bought 2 houses this year. Pause for dramatic effect. We bought 2 houses this year. One we moved into, we put 5% down. The other one we did not move into, we put 20% down. But we bought 2. We're picking up speed. You see that? We're really increasing our holdings. We've now added 2 properties to our portfolio. Okay, so appreciation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties that we own. Total of almost $50,000, 49 and high change. Debt pay down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A total of about $25,000 we're paying down the debt. Now here's where cash flow gets interesting. So we have negative $1,067 cash flow on one of them, negative $525 on another one, but we have positive $1,400 on another and positive $1 on another. Okay? So negative $1,591 is the total of all the negatives, and positive $1,401 or so is the positive on the top end. $1,400, it must have rounded down. Okay? So why are we getting $1,400 on this one? 20% down. It's that difference between financing your down payment, because you only put 5% or 1% down, and putting a full 20% down. You would have had positive cash flow. Just out of curiosity, what's 1,400 divided by 66,000 or whatever the number was? 66. Anyone do 1,400 divided by 66,000? Anyone? Calculator people? I'm kind of curious what cash on cash was. 2%. So this is a 2% cash on cash return property. Pretty interesting, right? It's not an amazing property. It's like one that you can find and reasonably expect to get 2% down on. So we're not trying to set the bar really, really high. Okay. So we talked about cash flow. Anyone have questions on the cash flow stuff? Sweet. So gross depreciation, 1, 2, 3, 4 properties that are rented and one that's not rented, $39,236. And then $7,848 is the tax benefit from depreciation. So here's the sum. Remember I told you these were going to get complicated? So $1,591 in negative cash flow and $9,248 in positive cash flow and depreciation. So a total of $7,656 total net positive between cash flow and depreciation, which is what this number is here, 7,656. Kind of increasing. That's what we want to see. All right, so how much money do you need in order to buy the next property? $6,298 is what you need to be making in order to buy the next one. Okay? Between 2 people. So that's $3,000 and change a month. So about $37,000 a year, $36,000 a year, somewhere around there per person. All right, so here's the infographic. Bought another 5% down. We have 3 with tenant buyers in there. We sold one and we bought a 20% down. That's the yellow one. Cash balance at the end of the year, $55,619 is what we had at the end of the year. All right, fast forward to year 10. You didn't think I was going to go through each year, right? Aren't you happy? We're good on time. So fast forward to year 10. We're going to sell 2 and buy 3 20% down properties in year 10. So let's take a look. Sell houses. We're going to sell a 5% down, and we're going to sell a 20% down. So Ty's cousin put down 5% option fee on a 20% down property 4 years ago, Today, he's buying the property. Okay, we're going to see that money come back in. We're going to find a new tenant buyer on the previous one we lived in. We're going to buy a new Nomad property, and we're going to buy 3 20% down properties this year. 3 of them. Collect lease option fees on the new 20% down, and collect rents on the properties that are all rented. So here's the money we had. In year 6, we had 47. Year 7, we had 55. Year 8, we had 68. Year 9, we had 85. In year 10, we started off the year with $108,000 in cash in the bank. How much did we start off with? $3,000. So $3,000 by year 10, we have, I'll show you the number of properties in a minute, but we also have $108,000 in cash in the bank, in addition to a bunch of rental properties. So how many do we own? Well, we have one that we bought in year 6, one that we bought in year 7, one that we bought in year 8, one that we bought in year 9 for 5% down. So that's 4. We have one that we bought in year 6, one that we bought in year 7, one that we bought in year 8, and one that we bought in year 9 with 20% down. So we have a total of 8 properties at the beginning of the year. Crazy. Okay, so the properties are worth $373, $165 now. I'm going to keep selling one of these a year at this point, of the 5% down ones, plus we're now going to sell a 20% down property. So this one's sold for $373. Pay off the mortgage of $241. Why is the mortgage so low? We paid it down, but what else? We put 20% down, so we owed less to begin with. The option fee we already collected. We got a $17,000 option fee on that one. Taxes on the profit, $12,391. The down payment back, $66,000 back, because that's how much we put down to begin with. We get a big chunk of money back. So a profit on that one, $35,600. Profit with the option fee, $52,675. Added to the bank account at closing is like this amount, plus probably the 101. Yeah, so it's these two. So $101,000 added to the bank account. The new bank account balance before we buy stuff is $266. That's crazy. All right, so we don't have enough. We have enough to hold out. We don't need to wait for, Jeff to find someone to buy the property beforehand. 5% option, we have more than enough to put 5% down. We also have enough to buy 3 more 20% down properties. The account balance is $266. The down payment for each of those is about $75K, and we've got it. We bought 4 houses this year, 1 Nomad, and 3 20% down. So now we have appreciation on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 properties for $111,000 that year in appreciation alone. We have debt pay down on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 properties. We paid off $52,000 in change in debt that year alone. Remember I said that was as close to a guaranteed return as you can get? You put $3,000 in year 1. By year 10, you're actually paying off $52,000 a year in debt. That's like the closest to guaranteed as you can get. So it's like almost a guaranteed return of $52,000 on a $3,000 investment 10 years ago. It's crazy. Cash flow on the property, you have a couple negatives. Negative $1,791 total, and you have some positives, $12,563. So you have the depreciation, it's almost $100,000 in gross depreciation, almost $20,000 in net depreciation after taxes. So your total amount of cash flow, when you take into account depreciation and your negative cash flow and positive cash flow, is $30,743.
What was your numbers for like collecting rent versus like your negative cash flow? Was that basically just what you get in rent per month minus your mortgage payment?
No, there's a vacancy number in there. There is maintenance, 12% maintenance reserve in there. There is taxes and insurance in there. There's the mortgage payment in there. If you had property management put in, it would be in there too. The HOA is in there. So yeah, it's actually a real number. It's like a true net operating income number. Yeah, good question though. Okay, so $30,743 is what you're seeing in year 10 from that stuff. How much money did you need to make? So it increased, I think we left off at year 6, $6,300, $6,600, $6,900, $7,000, almost $71,000, and $7,800. So by year 10, you need to be making $7,800 a month net, not net, gross, between 2 people, if you're doing you and your spouse, in order to make that work. Those are the numbers.
That includes your rental income, right?
It does. It takes into account any positive cash flow or negative cash flow you have in your rental properties. Because I'm using 75% of the gross rent you're collecting in order to offset those so that it shows you. Because if you actually go to G-Town, you run these numbers, and you're buying like a $150,000 or $180,000 duplex, and you're getting really good rent on it, your actual, the amount of money you need to make can actually go to zero or negative. So you actually can support it completely with rental property. Okay?
Do you know when you go to apply for a loan, can the underwriter utilize 100% of your rent income, or is it like a percentage of it?
So for any property that showed up on the previous year's tax returns, we use the tax returns.
Okay.
Right, so we're gonna use that Schedule E to be the rental income, which for the most part, if you take depreciation and you don't have some insane write-off, which this is the part where you should talk to somebody before you do it. I've seen guys that just completely screw themselves because they're like, oh, I lost $22,000 on this property last year. On paper, they don't feel like paying taxes. You know, that actually is going to hurt you. The properties that you acquire within a calendar year, the underwriter will take 75% of the face value of the lease.
And that's what I'm using.
So, but if you've had a property for 4 years, I'm using a 2-year rental history on your Schedule E for income, which I think your income figure is high, and I appreciate that you're being conservative, but you're probably going to have positive cash flow or break-even cash flow on all of these properties. You should, right, on paper. So they should almost all negate themselves on paper for me from a debt-income standpoint, right? Unless you have some crazy loss. You know, you can't, I can't add back in things like repairs and maintenance.
And remember, with this model, we're using new construction houses, is what we're,
And they're probably not going to have those big expenses.
and they're not going to have 12% per year maintenance. So you're probably even better off than what we're saying.
I think your reserve figure is high, which is
I agree.
still being conservative, but that's, for the naysayers, you want to be as conservative as possible.
That's right. Yep. All right, ready? Here we go. So here's the infographic. In year 10, bought one house where we owner occupy, Nomad property. 3 previous tenant buyers from these. We're selling 2. We have 3 20% down properties, and we bought 3 more 20% down properties that year. So the total that we own is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everyone follow? Okay. Here's your cash account balance. In year 10, you have $130,000 in the bank in cash, starting with $3 grand. Fast forward to year 13. We're going to now stop moving into Nomad properties. Almost thought I had a typo. So we're no longer moving in by year 13. Sell a 5% down and 20% down to a tenant buyer. So we're now selling 2, our 5% and our 20% down, holding out for the tenant buyer in the previous one that we did. We're stopping buying Nomad properties with 5% down. We're not doing that anymore. Buy 4 20% down properties. We have enough to do that. Collect lease option fee for the 20% downs, and we've got a number of rentals now we're going to collect right on. So the cash balance at the beginning of the year, 147 and change or whatever it was. Homes owned at the start of year 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% down properties. From 20% down ones, 1 from year 9, 3 from year 10, 3 from year 11, 3 from year 12. So we have a total of 14 homes at the start of the year. Property values are 407 and change. Close out lease options. Tenant buyers sold 1 5% down, sold 1 20% down. The account balance is approximately $320,000 after the sales, but before collecting lease option fees. So we don't buy any more Nomad properties. We're not moving in anymore. We have enough to buy 4 more 20% down properties. Account balance was $357. Down payment required for each is $81,000 and change. So we bought 4 all 20% downs. We're no longer moving in. Did I mention that a couple times? So appreciation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 properties now. Appreciation that year was $195,000. Debt pay down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think I counted right. $89,000 in debt pay down. Cash flow, you had a couple negative ones, negative $2,000, but we're buying the majority of 20% down properties now, so we have $32,000 and change positive per year. Your depreciation was almost $38,000 after taxes, so the net between depreciation and positive cash flow is almost $69,000 per year now in year 13. Kind of cool. And that's what that says. So the income you need right now, because you're putting 20% down, and you have a lot of positive cash flow, $39,15. Yeah.
In that year, is that assuming that you're now into portfolio loans? You
Have to, or you'd be splitting them, or you're alternating back and forth, right? I cut everyone off at 20. But yeah, you're right. And you got portfolio loan issues to deal with at this point.
Is
Does this assume you're still managing all these properties yourself?
You can go ahead and add management fee, but the numbers do not take into account management costs.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and add it whenever you want. You can add it from day one, but you don't need to. And we don't model it that way.
If you're running a 12% maintenance fee and you're using new houses, what do they charge? 8 to 9%. You could be there.
Sure. You could argue that, totally. Yep. I'm trying to be conservative. You guys can run numbers however you want. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, never buying a house, how realistic is buying four houses a year, working a full-time position?
So, I mean, sometimes we buy houses in groups, right? We buy 4 houses at a time. And you could do it in this case, right? You just go to a new construction place, say, I want to buy 4 houses with you right now. You put 4 under contract, you buy them, you maybe get a little discount or a little bonus on something, and you buy 4. It's easy to do. Independently, the most I've done is 6 independent single-family homes in 6 weeks. And that was hauling ass and doing a lot of stuff. It was me by myself buying 6 houses in 6 weeks. Yeah. It's a pain in the butt, but it can be done. Okay? All right, so infographic summary. By year 13, no more moving in, so there's no more orange house. 3 that you have previous ties in there doing that. You sold 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that are 20% down that have tenant buyers in there, and you bought 4 more. Okay? At the end of the year, 202, 710 in your bank account. Fast forward to year 22, equilibrium. This is like the last kind of section, and I'm good on time. So this is what happens in year 22. You sell, in a typical year, I mean, they kind of rotate through this. You sell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 4 houses, 4 to 7, depending on what year it is and whether they cash you out. Then you're buying replacements for those properties. So in the years you actually sold 7, you're buying 7. In the years that you sold 4, you're buying 4 to replace them. And so other than that, you would just have these properties. So in the years 22, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 you sold. You own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 that you have 20% down, tenant buyers in. And then you have another 7 that you're buying that year. This is sort of equilibrium where you're just kind of keeping your portfolio with 20 properties. You have cash flow on all these of $64,857. And something magical happens because you're putting 20% down on all these, you no longer have negative cash flow. Okay? So total cash flow with depreciation is $128,000 and change. That's what that shows on there between those two. So when you sell a 20% down property, we sold it for $532, paid off the remaining mortgage with $344. We had already received an option fee of $24,000. Taxes on the profit were $17 and high change. Down payment back of $94,000. So your profit, even toward the end, is about $50,000. Kind of what we were modeling before. $75,000 when you include the option fee. And so you add back to your bank account the down payment and the profit of $145,000. And you're selling between 4 and 6 or 4 and 7 of these per year, right? Because you're popping them out. You've got these things kind of always turning. So you're making these pops every 4 or 5 of these a year. 4 or 5, 6 or 7 of these a year profit.
Were you figuring commissions and selling in your profit numbers?
No, because we're not paying commissions. So there's no real estate agent involved. Because when I go to Ty and I say Ty, that's exactly right. All of these are tenant buyers. Okay. Yep. So there's no commissions. You're paying commissions when you buy, but it's already baked into the price. Yep. So any questions on this? You understand that you're getting so you're getting at least $200,000 in profit to, if you do 7 of them, $350,000 in profit every year when you're selling these. You're being paid to do this work. Okay?
In that option, go back to that screen right there. 6% on 500. You're going to lose $30,000 if you sell with an agent. So part of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Conservatively, if it's stuff.
Yep.
And so now your profit's 20 G's.
Yep. A lot less.
Doing the lease option is a huge factor to the profitability on.
Totally agree. You're trading that work to do it. All right. So cash account balance in year 22. The cash part of your portfolio is $3.2 million, okay? Because it just grows. So $3.2 million in 22, that's cash in the bank. It's not counting at least 20% equity in all 20 of the 500K-ish properties you have. So 20% of 500, that's the amount you put down. So that's about $100,000 times 20. If I'm not mistaken, my math is right, that's about $2 million by itself. So you have at least $2 million in equity and $3.2 million in the bank. And the question I ask, at least I think I ask, is where else can you invest $3,000 and get this? Right? So for the people that come in, they're like, seems like a lot of work, James. Sure, a lot of work. Totally agree. So go take your $3,000 and invest in the stock market and see if you get this. Right? That's the kind of pitch. So how much money do you need to make in order to do it? Kind of peaks out in year 12. It looks like that's like, I don't know, 8,000 and high change per month is what you need to make in year 12 in order to do it. But once you get past that kind of hurdle, the income required is much lower. You're starting to see almost all positive cash flow properties. Yeah?
What year is the rental income almost through that requirement?
Here's the rental. Here's positive cash flow. Where do you want to know? What number?
What year did it hit 8,000 or so?
Oh, it doesn't ever hit 8,000 for this because you have to make that from a job.
Oh, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, you need to be making that from a job. Yeah, it doesn't come from the cash flow from the properties. It already takes into account the cash flow from the properties. That's why it goes down after a while. Yeah. Okay, so gross monthly income required goes down, so you only really have to peak out right there. So what's killing your dreams? So what about this model was not believable for you? What will be hard for you? What will prevent you from acting? And what's your alternative if you don't do this? So here are some of the things I thought of. Down payment. Is there anyone who can't come up with $3,000 down or get it gifted to you? Okay, you could hustle, and if you want to go to G-Town, you can go, or you want to go do USDA and do nothing down, you can make it happen with a USDA nothing down loan, or if you're a veteran, thank you for your service, you can get a nothing down VA loan. In fact, the interest rate in a VA loan is a little bit better. Yeah, okay, so you can make it work better. So down payment, that's usually a complaint I get. I just showed you how to do the whole model with $3,000, and I tell you, you could do it with nothing down. Finding properties. Is it possible to find these types of properties in our current market? Yeah, they're brand new construction. You can go buy 10 of them right now. Qualifying for financing, income, credit, or something else. It's a legitimate concern. If you don't have the income, it's probably going to be hard for you to qualify for the loan. And this does rely on your ability to get loans. That is no doubt about that. Getting rents. We kind of had the discussion about, you think my rent's a little high? There's a 2-hour class I did on how to improve cash flow. And I think, how many people came to my cash flow explosion class? So having come to my cash flow explosion class, do you think it's possible to get $100 more rent than you probably thought you could from just all those different ideas we had? Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to do. Okay, plus you're doing lease options on the property and you're probably getting a slightly above market rent on those too. Work or effort involved. This is definitely a labor intensive model. This is not a passive, I just go buy rental properties and I just hold on to them. Very different. This is an active, I'm hustling, trading my time in exchange for not having to come up with as much down payment. Okay, definitely got to do that. Moving each year, that's the biggest one I get, right? Patrick threw his wife under the bus. She's not willing to move. I get it. I get it. You know, it's definitely hard to do that. But maybe you sit down and say, okay, let's do a retirement planning day, honey. Okay? How much of our income do you want to set aside for retirement so that we can have whatever amount we need in 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it is that we need to get to? So we sit down and we say, okay, in order to get to $3 million, that means we need to save, I'm making up this number up, $5,000 per month and get an 8% return in the stock market. Do we have $5,000 per month sitting around somewhere? Probably not. Okay? So this is a way to get there with just $3,000. Okay? So you have to convince them that you can either do this work and move every year, or you can eat cat food when we're retired. What would you like to do? Yeah, Ty.
So I think the only thing that I would have a question is, like, typically how hard is it to find a tenant buyer?
So Patrick, is it hard to find a tenant buyer?
I know you already asked it, but
I've done it.
Oh, you've done it? I mean, do you have to advertise?
Yes. You do. You put them on Craigslist.
That's not discriminating, right? Really marketing for them, saying this is what I'm looking for, that's fine.
Well, you can't say I'm looking for an African-American male that's between age 20 and 25.
All those are things that you obviously can't put online. Tenant buyer is not one.
You can discriminate against green. So if they have money or don't have money and that you're looking for a specific tenant buyer versus a renter, yes. Yep.
It's like a clean person versus a dirty person. That's discrimination.
Yeah. Okay, so getting on to this. So moving each year, we talked about that. The speed of the model. I mean, it does take time. In year 2, are you a millionaire? No. Year 5? No. Are you probably better off in year 5 than you would be if you took $3,000 and put it in the stock market? Yeah. I think so. So it does go there, but it takes some time to do it. It takes some effort. Market correction. So what happens if you do this and the market corrects like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Well, then you're buying properties at a discount. You're getting deals on the properties you're buying. So if you have a long-term horizon, you acquire 10, 15, 20 rental properties, and the market corrects, okay, now stuff's on sale. You know, I go ahead and restart. Buy more. Fear. I think that came up quite a bit tonight, right? This fear of the model. I went really slow, right, to try to explain everything, make sure you understand the numbers. And some of you were kind of napping back there because it's hot in the room, and the numbers kind of get repetitive over time. But I want to make sure you understand everything because understanding helps to alleviate fear. Okay? Is there anything else? What's preventing you from doing it? What are the challenges?
So is the benefit of finding an option buyer like that, the fact that they're skin in the game, and you're likely going to get your rents every month, and it's not like running the risk of just picking a renter out of Craigslist who's just going to rent your house and may stop paying at some point, and now you're on the hook for the monthly strokes while they're sitting in your house for 6 months.
Yeah, I think that is a factor. But really, for this particular model, the biggest benefit of looking for a tenant buyer is you're going to get the option fee so that you can use that for a down payment. Because you need that until like you're...
on every sale. Because in this model, you're actively selling properties in year 5, 6, 7, right? And you're saving 6% on each sale. If you, like, and this was going to be my question, is let's say your income is sufficient enough that every year you can save 5% on your own, and you never sell.
Sure. That's the traditional plain vanilla Nomad model.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And you stop buying at year 10.
And in that case, I guess it doesn't matter if your tenants are lease options because you're not selling to them. You're just screening for good tenants.
Yep. That's plain vanilla. That's less work. That's where we started. This is like the most aggressive version of the Nomad model you can do. Yep. Yeah, Cameron.
So I think I've asked this question before. In terms of overall maximizing wealth generation, say, would you recommend not waiting 4 years for that tenant buyer, maybe holding on for 5, 6 years, and then finding that tenant buyer? In terms of just long term, say you can't afford that down payment, would you recommend
No.
that?
I think this is the most aggressive version. I think it's the maximum way to do it because you're basically taking the money, the equity out of the property and trying to reinvest it in two up front, right? So you, as quickly as you can get the money out of the property and buy more than one property with those proceeds, you're actually speeding things up. So you're multiplying it faster by doing it quicker, is kind of my thought. And you limit the longer you hold the property, the more chance you have of getting hit with CapEx, capital expenses, new roofs, new flooring, new kitchens, new stuff like that. So really by churning the properties very quickly, you're limiting your exposure to that. The chance of having a hot water heater or a furnace or a roof or something else go out while you own the property is lower if you're picking properties that have really long CapEx schedules, like all that stuff has been done when you purchase them. And that's part of your selection process. One of the reasons why I like new construction. The thing I don't like about new construction is sometimes you got to finance in all the extra stuff like backyards and refrigerators and all that other stuff like that. And that's the downside of new construction, but I still think that's worth doing. Window coverings, yep. All the things like that. But they're all brand new properties too.
And you're waiting for sometimes building.
Yeah, and I think if you do it early enough, I think you can overcome the time frame planning because we're not like deciding on Sunday morning, okay, we're ready to buy. We know our time frame. We got a year to plan. So you can go to a builder early, 3 months like in when you own the property. You can say, what are you going to have in 9 months from now? When do I need to be here in order to get something that's going to be built out on this date or as close to this date as possible? And I think, and I'm not speaking for Patrick, but I think if you were 5 days or 10 days early closing on your 1-year loan, I don't think most people are going to balk at that. Yeah. If you start doing it consistently, month 10 or 11, I think they'll balk at that. But if you happen to be a couple days early on a year, I don't think anyone's going to scream kind of foul on that one. Any other questions? 168 slides, 158 slides in 2 hours. That's pretty good. Yes?
Towards the end, if you're like in year, between that 13 and on, do you ever stop and invest in multifamily units?
In this model, you don't.
You don't. Okay.
In this model, you don't, right? But you could do whatever you want. You now have, whatever the number was here, you've got $3.2 million in cash here, right? So sure, you can go take 20% down and go buy an Aplex or whatever you want to do to kind of diversify out. You're totally welcome to do that. There are some risks of multifamily above 5 units, right? Because most of those loans have balloons on them. And so you have an interest rate risk and you have a kind of the loan being called due risk, there are some loans out there for commercial properties that are full amortizing, 30-year whatever loans, but they're extremely rare and harder to get and unusual.
That kind of cash in today's market, though, you're talking about a 4, 6, maybe even 8 bucks, you could probably pay cash for the whole thing.
Oh, you could, yeah, sure. But you want to be well, maybe you don't want to be leveraged. Maybe you do want to actually diversify and have it all as cash flow. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think the model in general is single family homes and churn them out with lease option exits. I think that's probably the big one. So cool. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I will see you all next week or whenever.